everyone. Welcome. I am here today to talk about something that I see quite a bit of confusion over, and that is what exactly is medicated feed, what is in it, and who needs it. It's obvious from some of the questions that we get on our website and social media, and even some of the comments that we see, that there is some confusion over exactly what this is. So first of all, let me just say, when we are talking about medicated goat feed, we are talking about like the big 50-pound bags that say goat feed. And when you look at it, it says that it's medicated. We're not talking about like a little bag of Safeguard dewormer pellets, something like that. And I think maybe this is where some of the confusion comes in, because you can buy dewormer pellets for cattle, and also more Intel tartrate is a dewormer pellet. So that leads to the first bit of confusion, is that some people think that medicated feed includes a dewormer, and it does not. Medicated feed does not stop your goats from getting worms. What is in medicated feed is a coccidiostat. It is not a coccidiocide. And the difference between those two is a coccidiostat slows down the growth of coccidia. A coccidiocide is a medication that you use to treat coccidia, and that actually kills the coccidia. Using a coccidiostat in a medicated feed is better than using a coccidiocide, like Corid is a coccidiocide. Adding that to water, I'm not a fan of that for multiple reasons. I should make a completely separate video on that and just stick with the medicated feed here. So anyway, medicated feed is just for for preventing coccidiosis, because coccidiosis happens when there is an overgrowth of coccidia in an animal's gut. One of the things that we recently saw someone say was that they thought that feeding their wethers medicated feed would prevent urinary calculi, and that is not correct. Ammonium chloride is not medicine, and you won't see anything on the outside big label that tells you that ammonium chloride is in a goat feed. You need to read the ingredients and the tiny print on the back of the bag. Read that and look for ammonium chloride if you want a if you want a goat feed that has ammonium chloride in it, look for ammonium chloride in the ingredient list. It is not going to be in a medicated feed necessarily. It may be, it may not be, but it's not considered a medication. If it says medicated goat feed, then that means that it has a coccidiostat in it. That's the only thing that medicated goat feed means. Now, the next question, or the next thing I see a lot, is people giving it to all their goats. And that is completely unnecessary, because coccidia, every goat has coccidia, unless they've lived in a sterile room for their whole life. They have got coccidia. And that's not a big deal. It is really because they're immune to it. Adults are immune to it. The most common cause of diarrhea for kids between the ages of 3 weeks and 5 months is coccidiosis. And that generally happens at a time of stress, like weaning or going to a new home. So if you are weaning baby bucks, or if you're sending goats to a new home or something, then that would be the time to feed a medicated feed. And you only need to feed it for about 3 weeks to just get them through that stressful period so that the coccidia don't overgrow during that time and make them sick. You do not need to feed this to adults. And one thing too, I was also recently emailing with somebody about, is that she thought she needed to give this to her goats to, again, back to the ammonium chloride. She thought she needed to give her goats something with ammonium chloride in it to prevent urinary calculi. But urinary calculi, first of all, we got a great podcast episode on this. We want to link to it in the show notes afterwards. We have a whole podcast on urinary calculi with Dr. Van Son from Pennsylvania State University. And there are multiple kinds of urinary calculi. And the only stones that ammonium chloride prevent are the struvite stones. And struvite stones are caused by grain. So that's why they put ammonium chloride in goat feed, is because if your goats eat goat feed, your boys, because they have such teeny tiny little urethras, it's very easy for them to get blocked up. A really small stone could block them. So you want to be sure that if males are getting grain, then they should be getting ammonium chloride. But they don't need grain unless they're growing. And that is a short period of time. Once they are about half their adult weight, they don't need grain anymore because they're not growing so fast anymore. And so for my kids, that means around 6 months. When my boys are about 4 to 6 months, when they hit 30 pounds, because that's about getting close to half of what an adult wether is going to weigh at 60 to 70 pounds. So somewhere between 30, 35 pounds is when they're not going to get grain anymore. But you don't need to feed your goats goat grain with ammonium chloride in it to prevent a disease that's caused by the grain that you're feeding them. I hope that makes sense. Because it's a little convoluted, but that's basically it. And then back to the real medicated feed, you don't need to be giving that to your adults because they're immune to coccidia. They should not be going through any kind of stress that is going to cause them to get sick. The only adult that I can recall being treated for coccidiosis in my herd in more than 10 years, maybe 15 years, is a doe that almost bled to death after kidding. She spent a week at the University Vet Hospital. And while she was there, one of the things they treated her for was coccidiosis. Because like I said, she almost died. She was very, very sick. And so her immune system was in the gutter and she wasn't able to fight that off like she would have been able to normally. But basically most kids get exposed to coccidia when they're little, they develop immunity to it, and then it's not a problem later. So you don't need to keep feeding it to them. When I sell baby goats, I tell people that they can either watch the kids for signs of diarrhea, and if the kid gets diarrhea within the next 2 to 3 weeks, then it is most likely coccidiosis because they got stressed out, and so they can treat them at that time, or they can just wait. And then if on the flip side, they could get medicated feed, and they probably will not get coccidiosis at that point because the medicated feed is going to slow down the reproduction cycle of the coccidia. And I'm not sure what percentage, like maybe 50-50, it seems, of people who decide to buy it and those who don't. And I always tell them, like, when you are done with that bag, that's it. You don't ever need to buy another bag. Just one bag. You get them through the stress of moving to your farm and leaving mom and all their friends. And then they should be fine. They should not have a problem with coccidiosis after that. So the other thing, super important to know, I just cringe when I see this, is that you should absolutely not feed medicated feed to your milkers. Not only do they not need it, but on the bag, it says not for use in animals producing milk for human consumption. And I am really sad to say the number of professionals who I've seen suggest this who don't realize that is even on the bag. But it's in the milk. So if you are feeding your milkers a medicated feed, then the milk you're consuming has coccidiostat in it. And that one of the reasons I have milk goats is because I don't want to be consuming drugs in the milk. So you should not be feeding that to your milkers for sure. If you've got any questions, be sure to post in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. Bye for now.